vibe. Come let we lime, come let we vibe. Lime vibe. Lime vibe.
So welcome once again to another Lime Vibe conversation. I'm here with my guest today, Mr. Leyvon Miller, the infamous and notorious Mr. Leyvon Miller from Nassau, Bahamas. How you doing, Leyvon?
I'm good shape, Yuri.
That's
Yuri,
good. We haven't done a show together since you had the Connection show, wasn't it, right?
Yeah, it's been a good long time. As a matter of fact, I don't think you and I have shared any platform. I'm gonna venture and say in about 4 years, 5 years.
4 years or 5 years. Yeah, it's been a while, man.
Yeah,
So
the time ticks by. The time ticks by so quickly. You know, we're both definitely in different incarnations or dispensations of our lives. I remember. I think you were a politician at the time.
Yeah.
And I a radio show host. But you know, now I guess the wheels have turned a little bit because you're the show host now, and you know.
I'm in the media now, and I guess you're probably gonna run for office next, right?
You know, I continue to tell people that I've committed my entire life to public service. Whether that is a long life or a short life, I've adopted the words of the former sovereign, Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth R. And so whatever that service looks like, I'm happy to give it whenever the Bahamian people decide that they want it. So, you know, I'm just going to continue becoming a better Leyvon. And whatever the consequences of that are, then we will see in the future.
And that includes being a better father, right? You have 2 boys, don't you?
I do have 2 boys, Alexandria and Lamarck. And funny story, my eldest son just found out that he suffers from the same pain that I suffered from my entire life. He has a silent Y in his name. And, and so he's fascinated about it now. It's new. He can't stop telling people about it. He doesn't understand why does there need to be a Y in his name if it's silent.
You named them, right? Or the mom?
I did. And that is in keeping heavily with my Christian background. There is a scripture in the Bible that says, "And God took every bird of the air, every beast of the field, and He took them to Adam to see what Adam would call them, and whatsoever Adam called them, that was their name." So that's kind of the scripture that I use to affix myself to in that regard. And so I believe very heavily that in the role of paternity, one of the paternal roles is for the father to name children.
That's biblical. That's in the Bible.
Well, you know, the feminist movement will probably light me a fire for it, but you know, I don't heist my kite too often on them. They don't seem to blow a consistent enough wind for me.
Yeah, I know.
You know,
we got some crazy girls running around the place now, and these feminists, they've gone absolutely bat crazy, man. But before we get into misogyny, man, tell me a bit more about your boys in particular. What's some of the most fundamental things you would teach them about becoming a man nowadays, considering all that we've been dealing with this feminist thing and these crazy girls?
I think one of the things I try to teach my sons at all costs is the power of controlling emotions. That's one thing. We live in a very emotional society now where, you know, everybody has an opportunity to respond to everything instantly. Social media kind of makes everything your business. Everyone is eternally and internally involved in the goings on of everybody's life. And so we live in a very emotionally charged society. And I'm very Christian, but I guess when you've been around the Christian faith as long as I have, you find good fun in some of the scripture, right? And so there's a scripture that says, "For God so loved the world, He gave His only begotten Son," right? I have added a Leyvonism to that, right? And I say that for God so loved the world that Negroes got a chance to kill Jesus. And the point behind the message is, you know, never allow your emotions to overtake you to the point where it inflicts scenarios or situations on you that ordinarily you wouldn't tolerate or accept. Always, at any point that someone gains control of your emotional state, they have, for all intents and purposes, gained control of you.
Yeah.
And I try to teach my boys that. I also try to teach them good troubleshooting ability, because I look around, particularly in the generation of men that follow me. So we're talking about 27, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I mean, maybe people like myself are also to blame, but those boys, they know nothing and they know no one. They do not have conflict resolution capability, because their minds just simply do not think about problem solving. We live in a generation where everything can be replaced. And because everything can be replaced so easily, you never consider the necessary steps to rectify things. And I think largely that is showing up not just in our young boys, but also in our young girls, and ultimately in our relationships between men and women. So that is something I also teach my sons. Always try to figure the thing out. And then the last thing I teach my sons is make a deal and live with your deal. Make a deal and live with your deal. Make sure, no, because here's the thing, everything in life will be a compromise, right? Again, another Leyvanism, there is no such interest that is not self-serving. All interests are self-serving interests. I don't wash my neighbor's car because that benefits me nothing, right? I don't pay my neighbor's wife's bills because that ought not benefit me anything, but I guaranteed if it did, I probably would, right? So there is no such thing as an interest that doesn't serve self. While they may all be self-serving interests, right? That doesn't mean that they will all necessarily be to your benefit or to your credit. And sometimes you will learn that you've made a decision in your own interest that just didn't turn out for your own benefit. But what I try to teach my sons is, as a man, the test of a man is your ability to strike, and if you strike out, to get back up and strike again, right? Broker a deal, and once you've brokered that deal, be comfortable with the deal that you've brokered. So you know, I always, like, particularly with my oldest son, you know, he's the chatty one. I believe he's probably going to be some sort of like a lawyer or something, but he always tries to like outsmart me, outwit me on things, and I will say to him, fine, I hear you. Now let's make a deal. Let's see what you could live with. If I do this thing, can you live? Or if you do this thing, can you live with the fact that I'm going to need this thing, and that thing from you? And sometimes he says, no, Daddy, that doesn't really sound like a good deal. I say, okay, well, go think about it. Think about it. Because once we make a deal, that is the deal that I expect you to live by.
Yeah, you can't go back on it anymore after that.
Yeah, and I think for me, it is my teaching them not only to be somebody that is comfortable in the spaces that you create, but also how to be somebody that is dependable, and how to be somebody that is a man hinged to his word and his conviction. And people categorize you as that. Like, they know that if Yuri says something, this is it. If Leyvon says something, this is it. And those are predominantly three of the characteristics I'm trying to see if I could put into male children.
Sounds like you're gonna raise two beautiful young men, man. But you
let's hope. Let's hope. I one very small other truth. I tell people often, you know, I don't know if I'm qualified or capable to even be a daddy. The more you journey through fatherhood, the less qualified you feel like you are, right? Like,
but you know, you're doing a good job. I watch you on your social media, and you have those boys everywhere, and you always have them at the forefront of your life, man. So you're doing a great job. You're doing better than many other guys out there.
I appreciate that, but I'll tell you why, right? Because I'm a guy that's big on numbers and statistics, right? I suck at math, but I understand the way statistics ought to translate. And if the studies are correct, statistics suggest in psychology that just to be a present figure in the lives of male children makes them 67% less susceptible to lives of crime and criminality. So at the very least, I think my sons will perform at a 67% higher level than 70% of the children in the country, because 70% of them are born to single parent homes.
Right. Wow. Well, you can't fight the numbers, man. The numbers are what they are.
I like the numbers. So I'm not doing anything special. I'm just trying to apply the numbers.
Yeah, man. But you said something earlier as well. You tell me about relationships, or you were preparing for relationships. How do you feel about the current relationship dynamic here in the Bahamas and in the Western world per se? Because I've run across a bunch of these YouTube channels and these Facebook pages and these TikTok pages about these relationship gurus and they tell you about these quote unquote Western women and how to deal with modern women. So how do you feel about the dating relationships now between man and woman now? How do you see the dynamic between male and female now?
I think it is very interesting, right? Because what I think is hardship in the 60s and 70s and maybe even the 50s bore this need for survival in relationship, right? And so there is an over monetization of love in my view, right?
Wow.
And incredibly, if you are the woman, right, you get to watch this, you get to weaponize your emotions and affection, right? And so if you do not get what you want when you want it in the quantities you think that you deserve it, you get to punish the person or persons that you believe should provide that for you, right? Because somehow we have put an incalculable, and I don't know what your demographics are that watch this show, so hopefully I'm not going too deep into the pool here, but we have put an incalculable value on the worth of female genitals.
Yeah.
And somehow male genitals is somehow still charitable work, right? And so what we now have is a society where men and women are overly in competition against one another. And literally the competition is breeding animosity in my view. And so men and women just no longer naturally like each other. Like there has to be some other attached benefit. There is no more simple love. There is no more I like you if you like me, take yes or no. It's very common to hear what do you bring to the table. It's very common to hear the defense answers that be I am the table or the minute I show up to the table, whatever is on the table becomes better. And it's because we have created a combative, because I don't like the word toxic, we've created a combative love society, right? And what do I mean when I say that? We've taken away the natural chemistry that ought to simply exist between a man and a woman. Like our grandparents did it in a way that in today's society would probably be messy, right? Because of social media and inclusion of so many random people into your lives, right?
Yeah.
But your grandmother loved your granddaddy just because he was your granddaddy. That Negro ain't had no money. That Negro ain't had no clout. Nobody knew him. She wasn't living the life. She wasn't brunching every Sunday for sure, right? But what he was a hardworking man that did the best that he could to provide for children that he created. And I will say this as well as a caveat, right? Because somehow there is a notion afoot these days that Black men in particular, because I don't really particularly care about white men. I think their statistics always works in their benefit is what I mean.
Yeah, because they're a dominant society, man.
Yeah, but Black men in particular, there is a folly perpetuated against us that somehow we are all into violence and somehow we are all into absenteeism and fatherhood. And I can tell you, I have school-age children, right? I can tell you from the goings on of my own life, when I go around the schools, largely fathers are. This is possibly the most involved Black man era of the world's history. Wow. And so let's go back to the original question, right? I think the venom of the absenteeism that our grandmothers suffered was poorly communicated to our sisters and the women of our generation, right? And so Mama only communicated the abuse. She never communicated all of the other things that this man had actually done. And everybody's so busy trying to not be abused that we missing an opportunity to enjoy one another, to engage one another. Everybody needs, so I need to guarantee you something in order for you to want to experience me. When I in myself, I'm an actual experience. I am an encounter. You should want to encounter me. And I think that was the thing that our grandparents have that we no longer have. And for me, that has now turned sexual exploits, that has turned just courtship into something that is
battle zone, man.
Economic these days.
Yeah,
it is so monetized these days. Like if you do not make, I would say on average $4,000 a month, you almost do not have enough money to entertain a woman. It's as simple as that.
As simple as that. Yeah. But so you think women are perpetuating this the most, or because they are reacting to the absenteeism of the generations beforehand, or do you think that men are just not picking up the slack and just not responding to women the way they used to back?
Oh no, I honestly believe this. I honestly believe, right? And I don't speak so much for the generation of men like right behind me. I still haven't built up a solid enough tolerance for them as yet, right? To study them in any real level. But certainly when I think about men between the ages of 30 and I would say 42, maybe even 45, like every single one I don't know a single one of them that is an absent father. Personally, I don't personally know one. I don't personally know a single one of them that ain't getting up every day to go to a job. I don't personally know a single one of them that even if they're going to a job, don't have some sort of future aspiration. More of them are educated than any of the people from my daddy's era. So how if the men have gotten so much more qualified and now so much more involved, are they still so demonized? Like that just doesn't make sense to me. Right? That just doesn't make sense to me. And it almost seems to me like a moving post, right? Like no matter how hard a Black man tries, this post is a moving one. And I get it. Our fathers and grandfathers weren't all righteous men, and so some of them have caused some damage to the psychology of women in the past, and they pass that psychology along. But you cannot continue to accuse me of the sins of my father.
Yeah.
You cannot, and you certainly ought not continue to punish me for the sins of my father. You cannot say, oh, well, ain't no man can use me, or ain't no man can do this to me. I've never tried to do it to you, so why would you be building a defense against me on that level?
Yeah, it's almost that frontline defense that you have to actually get over. You haven't done the woman anything, but she's put up this barrier to you that you don't even know what's going on, man. It's ridiculous, man. It destroys relationships, man. So I mean, but you mentioned something else that you said that men are more educated now. So you think that the Black men are catching up again now? Or you think that we're still falling behind?
I don't think we could fall behind. I think even when we weren't as educated, we were still ahead of women in that we were allowed in the workplace, we were allowed in the conference rooms, we were allowed in the business meetings. So sure, women had to do a great deal of catching up. But let's not be mistaken. For the last 40 years, you could just go check the college numbers, right? Women have been outpacing us. I think it's 8-1 in education. So certainly they are the more educated gender. What I'm saying to you though is that this generation of men, right, it's probably the most formalized, educated bunch of fellas. I mean, outside of the generation of, let's just say, the Charles Sanders and those people where everybody kind of went to pupil school and there was just a bright generation of men being kind of nurtured into leadership, sure. But outside of that generation, which would have been like 1930, 1940, outside of that, like these gentlemen of the 80s, right, are probably the creme de la creme of the pickings as it stands now. And they are. They have the grit and tenacity that they got from their father. So most of them can mow the lawn, change the oil, change the tire, and all that manly stuff, change a light bulb. They have the education that society deemed they needed. So that same guy that could change a tire also could tell you how to calculate Pythagoras' theorem, right? And then that same person also has the homemaking capabilities or qualities that he would have gotten from his mother, who didn't want him to be like his daddy for some woman to abuse him. So technically they've created hybrids, right? Because now all of the functions that my father would have turned to a woman for, I do not need. I do not require them.
Yeah.
Even the economics of it makes no sense to me. My daddy married a woman because he wanted to have a 2-income house so he could buy a home. I've bought 2 houses in my life. I don't need a woman for that.
Yeah.
You see? And so a lot of the social markers that people got into relationships for are proving no longer necessary. And so marriage is becoming an anachronism. And because that is the case, right, the journey through courtship is becoming something that is laborious and tiresome, and people are just not interested in being bothered with it, because I can have all of the successes as a single man, and if I need someone to cook, clean, or iron, I could hire a maid because I make enough money. Right. And if I want sex, I could get me, you know, a rental vagina or something like that. I don't need to go through the nuances of love and commitment and that kind of stuff. And so, because there's so many complexities.
See, and that's the thing, you know, Leyvon. The modern women nowadays, they give us all of this flack, right? But they don't realize we really don't need them like that. I mean, but outside of sex, I mean, otherwise, I mean, we could, like I said, we could get it anywhere, man. You don't need.
So I think the sex with the woman that we desire is more about stability and the handing off of generational wealth.
Yes.
And because you don't want to just hand that off to anybody, right? I think it's more about social image. That has a lot to do with it, because you could look at plenty of these people and see that them and the woman they married to don't know which side of the house the next one in most days of the week, right? But when they come out, they take the pictures in the Christmas. They have the picture with the dog in the front of the Christmas tree. She puts on her extravagant jewelry. You know, he cuts his beard in a good tapered cut, and they come out as a wonderful unit. And people marvel at them and say, "Oh my God, I mean, look at the Joneses," right? And largely, in my view, that's what it kind of boils down to be. Many of these people just aren't happy, and if you sit around them long enough, you know, it kind of tells on itself. I had the luxury, if you'd call it that, of working in a divorce court for 11 months of my life, and I can tell you that if you sit in there long enough, you will realize that many of the formulas that you deem success for a successful relationship are folly, and none of these formulas work.
Yeah. I know. I found the hard way, man. Even with dealing with, I'm not married, right? But dealing with relationships, all the things they tell you about on these R&B songs and these love songs in the movies, there's a bunch of foolishness, man. That stuff is not how relationships really work.
Yeah. There's one in particular that comes to my mind. Just by you saying that, it's by Bruno Mars, right? I'm sure you must have heard it. I think the words go something like, "I hope he buys you flower. He holds your hand. All his hours when he has a chance. Take it to everybody, because I remember you like to dance, do all the things I should have done when I was your man." I always add at the end of that, and she would still leave.
Yeah, of course she would.
And she would still leave. An old man said to me one time, something that I've again also adopted as my own: all women want the one thing from all men that no man can give them. All women want the one thing from all men that no man can give them. That one thing is?
What's that?
More.
Wow.
From you determine you are interested in a woman, you start giving her at your capacity level.
Yeah.
So you will give her all of your disposable income. You will give her all of your disposable time. You will give her all of your disposable assets. Anytime you have decided, I like this woman, instantly as a man, it is your innate desire to give her things.
Yes, to please her.
So whatever you are giving her is obviously, right, your worth, or your worth's amount of it that you have, or that you could relieve yourself of without causing any detriment in your own life, right?
Yeah.
Problem with that is she will want more. And so you will have to go and find more, or generate more, or steal more, or do whatever you need to do to get more, because they don't want a particular thing. They just want more.
Yeah.
Now, more of what? More of anything that you give.
Yeah, they want all your attention, Leyvon. They want all of your attention, man. Every single second of it. They want you to divert everything, that take away from all your hobbies, your job, everything that you held sacrosanct. They want you to now focus that on them 100% of the time. I realize that from women, man. So my thing is, but back to the marriage for a second, though. You think that, well, you know, marriages are really failing in the Western society, right? You know, particularly in the United States. And
72% actually, I think, is the number.
Yeah, they go and end up in divorce, right? So my thing is, right, does that really hurt men more or women more, this divorce? Because I think it hurts women more.
Men, naturally. So here's another Leyvonism. By the time the show is over, you'll have a fistful of them, right? So here's another Leyvonism. I tell people, woman, house, and children go together. And if you don't believe that, ask a judge. Whenever a man and a woman decide that the man and the woman can't be together no more, the judge then decides. Woman, you, the house, and the children, you all go together. You know what man go together? Outside. Because the judges turn around and say, man, you go outside.
Wow. Yeah, we get the worst end of that, man, because we lose everything. I've listened to this lawyer on several podcasts online. This James Sexton guy, and he's a New York lawyer. And he says he's a divorce lawyer, and he says all the troubles that men go through with divorces and stuff like that. I say he calls it, quote unquote, negligent that anyone would get married nowadays. he says it's a profile of negligence that you can see that at least 70% of the marriages end up in divorce, they end up in disaster. That you will continually go into a marriage knowing full well it's going to end up, it's going to burn in flames. That you actually want to be married. It's just the profile of negligence. He said. And I said, wow, I never thought of it that way, because it would be negligent. But like, for example, would you go into a burning house knowing that you have a 90% chance of being burnt alive or a 77% chance of being burnt alive? Would you walk in that burning house? Would you jump out of a plane and your likelihood of actually touching the ground safely is only 70, is only 40%, 30%? Would you jump out of a plane, Leyvon?
That's the one that I like to use. That's the one that I like to use. I ask all people that are pro-marriage, right? And let me put this disclaimer in here, because I like frank disclosure. I am the product of 100 years of marriage. My grandparents were married for 74 years. Wow. My parents were married for 36 years until my daddy died. My grandparents were married for 74 years until my grandmother died. And I feel like that is the only reason those marriages have ended, right? So that aside, let's put that in a compartment. I ask people often, right? If I could tell you right now, Yuri, I want you to stop working. Here is what I'm going to offer you if you stop working. I'm going to offer you a life of luxury travel. You don't ever have to worry about rent or owning a house, because you won't live anywhere long enough to need a house. Every month, I intend to send you on a 21-day trip to anywhere in the world you would like to go. However, every time you get on a plane, 7 out of every 10 planes that take off from the airport on the days that you travel will crash.
Oh, boy.
Would you still take my deal?
Absolutely not. Absolutely, absolutely not.
And I'm sure you want to stop working, right?
Yeah. Oh my goodness, Leyvon. People don't see it like that, But then, how do we get these relationships back? How do we get women back to the position, or men back to the position where they actually can appreciate one another? Because do you think we've actually lost our women to the street? Do you think that they're gone? Because I'm watching things like the Sexy Reds and the Nicki Minaj's and the who else? The all the other rap stars like Sukiana and those girls. And they're really leading this next generation of young women. So and Spice and all those, right? So have we lost our women to the streets? Are they really gone? Are they finished?
I don't know if they're lost to the streets. But what I will say is, I think that the things that we once associated with man and woman interaction or interrelations, again, are just no longer necessary. And I don't need a woman for any of that stuff. And a woman doesn't need you for any of the stuff that your Grammy needs your granddaddy for. And so we no longer need each other, right? And necessity is usually the place that is the breeding ground for cohesion and amicable relation, right? If you need me and I need you, it doesn't matter what our difficulties are, we will find a way to survive through this. The problem is, though, Yuri, we've got to find people that just want us.
Yeah.
I don't want to be needed. I want somebody to want me. I just want you to want me. That's it. Yeah. And at any point you decide that you no longer want me, I want to leave you.
Yes.
And I think that that's fair. So I think we ought to place less of a burden on people that want to exit relationships. Like listen, like when your Grammy them was together, we don't have to do 35 years.
So you believe in no fault? You believe in no fault divorce then?
Yes. People are like paper plates. They're all disposable. They're all disposable. When you get to and if you don't believe that, right, then tell me what death is, right? Because there are people in your life that you thought you couldn't live your life without, and they die.
Yeah.
And what is your alternative? Right? So I say often, you get to a party, right? You go to a backyard party with one of your friends, the guy among your crew that cooks the best off the grill steak, right? And you get there and he says, boy, the steak them ready right now. Do you know what is the most important thing in the world right then to you? A paper plate. The absolute most important thing on the planet. You love it. You must get one. You will go to great lengths. You will even go and ask the woman of the house, man, give me one of the paper plate would you got high, right? Because in that moment, nothing on this planet has more value to you than the paper plate. I'll tell you this: 2, maybe 3 cuts of the steak in, you've had your fill, right? You've enjoyed the steak. The paper plate has done immaculately well by you. You have no complaints about your paper plate. You know what is now the most important thing in life for you?
Garbage.
Somewhere to throw this paper plate. Somewhere to dump this paper plate is now the new important. And human beings are the same way. You do your own life a bit of injustice if you sit down and assume that one human being will be all of everything you need for the rest of your life. That is inhumanly possible.
So you don't believe in monogamy?
Oh God, huh?
You don't believe in monogamy then?
Well, I live in a very conservative society, and I come from a very conservative upbringing, and so I support the concept of monogamy because I've seen it throughout my whole life. But I do believe, this is probably going to become dizzying, that monogamy is something that was created for the white man and not necessarily for the black man.
And that is repeat that. What?
That monogamy was something that was created for the white man and not for the black man. And here is why. If you take the sex out of it, right? Let's click the sex out of it, because black women only hear debauchery when they hear the word polygamy, right? Take the sex out. The reason why the black man needed polygamy was to economically catch up with the white man.
Explain that, Leyvon, please. I like the head end of this.
Well, okay. I own one piece of property, right? I marry Yuri's daughter, right? Yuri dies. He wills that property, his property, to his daughter who is now my wife. That property enters my estate. I'm married to John Smith's daughter. John Smith dies, leaves his daughter with property or land or money. He wills that to his daughter. That daughter that is my wife, that now becomes a part of our estate, right? It's the King Solomon principle. King Solomon wasn't as wise as we credit him for. If anything, he was tactful on how to never have to fight a war, and the best way to never fight a war is to become the lineage of all the kings in the general region that your kingdom is in, right?
Yeah.
And so it proves that the benefits of polygamy is far greater than the sexuality of it, right? And certainly it can be for reduced stress levels, because most people don't want to live in the house with one woman. Imagine living in the house with 9 of them, right? Or in his case, it was 200 of them.
Yeah.
but what I'm saying is, it certainly economically was a cheat code. And the reason why white men didn't need it was because white men were the ones that controlled the economy before black men were even recognized as humans, right? And so we found a beautiful cheat code. And I don't know if you grew up in Nassau City, but if you grew up in Nassau, we practice poly living our whole lives. It is not uncommon in Nassau to live in a yard where there are 4 or 5 different families living on one plot of land.
Yeah.
Whether they are siblings or cousins or aunties or whatever they are. And so we share the light bill because only 1 meter hook up to this whole yard. We share the water bill because only 1 meter hook up to this whole yard. We share the grocery bill, and that at its very purest state is a poly lifestyle. But because we are so fickle in our thought, the only thing that we continue to attribute to the life of polygamy or to poly living is the sexuality of it. And I think that is the least of the benefits.
That's all we see.
Because I could be very in a monogamous relationship on paper and having sex with as many people as I want to. So proclaiming monosexuality doesn't necessarily guarantee anything.
I get you. So I understand what you mean, right? Because even today, even right now, if you drive down some parts of Camp Road, you go in some parts of Baintown, you can see these poly
living.
Yeah. These 3 or 4 houses.
And Angliston, any one of the very black communities.
Yes, the inner cities. That's right. So you explained a lot, man. So you say we got to catch up to the white man, so we have to get involved with polygamy. That's a hot take there, Leyvon.
I like to call it poly living. Whenever you call it polygyny or polygamy or polyandry, people get the heebie-jeebies about it, right? So I just like to call it poly living, and then that way, Grammy could be involved, right? Because I mean, just think about it, right? Like, it is unfair. What our grandfathers? My grandmother is a woman that had 18 children by her husband, right? That is ungodly to put 18 children in one human being.
Yeah.
That was an unchristian thing to do.
Those women were strong, weren't they? My grandmother had 14 of them, actually.
Yeah, and if you put 18 children in a woman today, she probably will end up on the crazy hill.
Yeah, you can't do it no more. Those days are long gone, Leyvon.
So this is my point. But there are people like myself and yourself, Yuri, right? That are good, decent men, that are good, decent, contributing men, that are men with a bit of wherewithal and mental aptitude that should go into the next generation, right? Mm-hmm. But if all we could be reduced to is one child or two children, the possibility of that happening, right, just isn't as great. Mm. When I think about the fact that my granddaddy is a man with 14 sons, 14 of which are all contributing. Well, only 8 are left because the rest are dead, right? Oh, okay. But I'm talking about contributing to families, contributing to taxes. Every single one of them are a skilled man in their arena. Mm. Could you imagine the world without them? Let's go to Dwayne Sands. Let's use something a bit more magical, right? Okay. Dwayne Sands, if I'm not mistaken, is the baby out of 6 or 7 children. Really? He is. I have met doctors in America and Canada that are in a state of bewilderment when you tell them that you know Dwayne Sands or that you can call Dwayne. He's like the holy grail of surgery, right? Yeah, yeah. Could you imagine if Dwayne Sands' mommy only had 2 children? Yeah, we never have it. And so, yeah, maybe all of those are the things that poly living was supposed to have assisted the Black man with, right? We are already a minority ethnic group, so you can't say there's too many of us, and just in my view, I think in a reasonable world there wouldn't be as much backlash about it. But again, I believe the reason it isn't as proliferated as it ought to be is because women in the West have learned to weaponize sexuality against men in the West. And because men in the West do not want to be punished sexually for their desires or for their thoughts or for their theories, they acquiesce. Or like the old people would say, they keep doing this thing for peace sake. Yeah. No, I find some of these modern guys, they're so weak. They don't stand up to anything they want. They don't stand their ground. Anything that would be anything that would upset a woman who they have an attraction to, they just back off. They can't stand their ground. And women want men to stand their ground. Women want men to stand up and say, this is not how this is going to go. She may not talk to you for a day or two, maybe even a week, maybe even a couple of months, but she appreciates the fact that you stood up to her. But these simps, they call them, these weak men, they just capitulate on almost any and everything they want. It's sickening, man. At any given point, it's just ridiculous, man. But I guess the warmth of a woman, the value of the warmth of a woman is something that most men are not prepared to discount from their lives. But here's the thing, though, Leyvon. Here's the thing, though. I mean, the minute they capitulate, the minute they give up to her, she's going to lose all respect for him, all respect. And if they had a relationship, it's probably not going to last any more than another 3 or 4 months anyway. So you might as well start up and have it for the long term, man. But these guys, I don't know. Except if manipulation is the goal, right? Like I've started this new thing over the last 2 years, Yuri. It's a theory of my own that I'm working on, that women largely control relationships through deflecting and manipulation, right? And it is, at any point you get mad at a woman, she needs to now be more mad at you than you are at her, so that the issue that exists is not the one that you pointed out, but now the one that you created because of your inefficiencies, right? Yeah. So if you say to a woman, well, you told me you were going to boil the water at 100 degrees, right? She's going to say, yes, I tell you that. But the last time I boiled the water at 100 degrees, you tell me the cup couldn't hold the water. Okay, fine. How does that change the fact that you told me you were boiling the water at 100 degrees? Oh, but why would I boil the water at 100 degrees? You want me to scald you up? No, I don't want to be scalded up. But let's look at the other options. Wouldn't it have been wonderful for you to at least come back and communicate to me? Hi, I'm not boiling the water at 100 degrees. Or wouldn't it have been wonderful for you and I to sit down and try to think about, babes, maybe we should get different cups that could hold the 100-degree water. That's not the technique she's interested in using. The technique she wants to use is the one where she deflects. Yeah. Oh, well, when you boil the water, don't be 100 degrees. Yeah. We're not talking about when I boil the water. We're talking about when you boil the water. Yeah. Right? Or to manipulate. Well, next time I can just let you get scalded up. I also don't want to be scalded up. I would like to not be scalded up. I would just also like you to do what you say you were going to do. And I spent the last 2 years pointing that out on every occasion that I have an opportunity. And my friends don't hate me for it now, but you know what?
It's your opinion, Leyvon. Tell the truth, man, because it's true. I experienced something like that last week, actually. Well, not exactly how you said, but she just wanted to deflect the entire conversation, man. I put up something on my WhatsApp. I said that this perpetual dating is just an excuse for people to go around whoring around the place. And I didn't mean it to women per se. I meant to anybody. Anyone who wants to be perpetually in a dating situation. It's just an excuse to sleep around with multiple people. And she got upset and said, "Oh no, this is why I haven't been speaking to you." And this and that. But say, Miss, I haven't spoken to you in so long. Because the last time I took her out, I haven't called her back in probably about a month. And she has probably just started making these wild accusations, saying, "Oh, this is why I'm talking." It's like, "Miss, I haven't been speaking to you. What are you talking about?" It's like you're not talking to me. I wasn't talking to you. I haven't been reaching out to you. So what are you talking about? And she got upset. She wanted to start arguing. She got upset, like you say, deflect from her inefficiencies, right? So I said, man, hey man, that's your business. If you think sleeping with a bunch of different men is good for you, that's fine. I shouldn't have to explain to a young woman why sleeping with a bunch of different men is a bad thing. No one should have to tell a young woman that. But you have to tell these young women that these days now, Leyvon. You have to tell people that you can't go around.
Well, we live in a different world. We live in a different world, Yuri, where people have values attached to different things that aren't the things that we once attach them to. So
that's true.
We live in a world. We live in a world where everybody could be a body now, right? And so,
these fives and sixes, they think they're tens, man. They want these girls who are basically fives and sixes. They think they're nines and tens.
They certainly have enough money to afford to go and do whatever enhancements that they need. Apparently.
That's true.
Apparently, women have a revolving door of money to pay over the last 5 or 6 years, because I don't know where everybody keeps getting this $7,000 to $12,000 from.
I don't know where they're getting the money from. I don't know where they're getting the money from. I pain myself every time
I work 4 jobs, and I can happily tell you I make $9,000 on anything that I cannot live and eat.
I know, right, Leyvon? I'm so pained when I go to even the gas station, Leyvon, where I could see a woman pull out a $50 bill, a $100 bill, and say, "Fill up my car." I have to pull out a $10. Say, "Put $10 in my car, Leyvon." That pisses me. Say, "Where the hell y'all getting this money from? This is the depressed economy."
Yeah.
How can you go to the tire shop and get 4 brand new tires for your car, and I have to get a used tire for mine? Say, "Well, what's going on here? Where are you getting this money from? We all work at the same place. We all know you ain't making no more than $500-$600 a week. So where the hell you getting this money from, man?"
Yeah, well, again, they like to say it's a man's world. I don't share that view. I think that this world is very much a woman's world. So much so that I tell people often, if the Hindus are correct and you get to live life twice, I'm either coming back as a woman or a cat, because I've never seen either of them struggle.
Yeah, that's true. I firmly believe is these simps, these weak men that both of them. That's on the one hand. We also have these top tier males who just give them everything and just dismiss them only when they want to have sex with them and push them to the side. And they give them the whole world, man. Meanwhile, guys like us who are in the middle.
And women, and it's because women will tolerate abuse for money. That is something I'm prepared to preach from the mountaintop. Women, the same woman that will not let you get away with any inefficiency is, that very same woman will tolerate a mountain of abuse from a man that can provide her luxuries.
Yeah,
I've proven that time and time and time again. So much so, I mean, it's almost vomit worthy when I see it like happening in real time. You know what I mean? Like girls that I knew meant so much to fellas, or girls that I knew certain fellas would amputate their own hands for. Just out of a sign of love and commitment or whatever have you. Those same girls, they don't pick that guy. They pick the guy living in the fast lane because he can provide the I mean, and less one of the naysayers that will see this hears that as me being bitter. I'm not. I mean, if that's what you can have, then have whatever you can. But the problem is that same girl.
Tell the truth.
When that ride is over, that same girl now wants an ordinary guy to just love her. I should just love her. Why? And I know you could take abuse.
Yeah. They hit the brick wall they want.
Why should I give you my intangible value when I know that you're prepared to trade your value for tangible value? You know what I mean? So it is one of those things that you really have to reach deep down in yourself, Yuri, and decide that I'm just going to be a good person to this person, although I know that they weren't a good person to themselves.
Yeah. You just gotta love them beyond. You just have to go above and beyond to love them, man. You have to do the good.
And you have to be comfortable knowing that may not necessarily be the reason they love you.
Yeah, I know, and it may even be reciprocated, man. They may not care for you or less. But you have to show love to people, man. The Bible says so, man. You have to go above and beyond, man. Jesus Christ did it. He died on the cross for our sins. And they ask us to live like him. Yeah. And he loved unconditionally, man. So you know what?
well, see, there again, you're going down a rabbit hole let me put this disclaimer out there. I have a rabbit hole full of theories that I work on in my own head.
Oh yeah, please daily, go ahead, man. Go ahead, by all means.
And I think that's problem number one. I think a lot of people are continuing to try to build relationships on this thing that wasn't designed for human beings. Human beings, in my view, are incapable of love. How do I argue that? Very simple, right? Not because you can participate in something means that you have the capability to do it. Like Yuri Camp could go on the basketball court with a basketball and play with the basketball. I am hedging my bets. Yuri Camp cannot play basketball.
Yeah,
he's just not capable of playing basketball, right? Now you may see him out on the court. You may see him with the ball. You may even see him shoot it. Every now and again, he might actually even get one to go in. But does that mean that Yuri is capable of playing basketball? Let's just use a better analogy. You have a Suzuki Swift, right? You go to one of these lumber companies and you buy, I don't know, $500 worth of 2x6, right? You take the $500 worth of 2x6 and you strap it. You put a piece of cardboard on the roof and you strap it to the top of your Suzuki Swift and you carry it with you from wherever you pick it up from for about 10 miles, 12 miles to your house. The Suzuki Swift towed the lumber, yes. That Suzuki Swift isn't designed to tow that lumber.
No, absolutely not.
And to continue to try to do that with the Suzuki Swift will lead to its demise, right? And so here's the theory now. The theory is if love is an unconditional thing, right? Then how are creatures that are solely created on condition able to achieve it? You look the way you look because of a condition. You talk the way you talk because of a condition. You like the things you like because of conditioning. So if you are a creature whose entire existence relies on some condition, how are you capable of providing an unconditional thing? This doesn't seem reasonable to me.
That's thought.
I am of the view that God created love for gods, right? Because there are other gods in the universe. There is, if you are a Christian, then you believe that there is the one true God. But there are all sorts of gods that people reach out to. And gods are allowed to love because they are beings that are not attached to a condition. That's why they are omni beings, yes?
Yeah.
Unless you are omni, you just don't possess the ability to love. So people say, well, what about my children? Let's go to that, right? Maslow in a theory, is it Maslow or is it Freud? One of them in their theory, right, argues that the thing about your child that you love the most is that your child provides for you continuity into the future. So the reason why if you and your baby were walking across the street and the car was running wildly, you would protect the child isn't because you value the life of the child more than yours. No, your brain calculates that you've lived your life and that this child has more life to live. And by protecting his life, your life now transcends this era and will live into a new generation. Right? Sounds very godlike to me, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does, man. Sounds
so the closest replica that you could have of love is that of a parent to a child, because that by its very nature is the closest God-like function you will ever carry out. So I believe, right, that a lot of times where we try to use love in instances, we really could just replace love with things that are functional and measurable. Like, I appreciate you, right? Like, mathematically, we make sense. Economically, we make sense. Here's the thing. Here's what I invite all of my friends that want to be married to do. Take love out of the equation. And if marrying this person on paper still makes perfect sense, then you don't need to love them to marry them. You could just marry them.
So you say love doesn't exist. Love doesn't exist. I'm not prepared to.
I believe love exists. I believe God loves the world. I believe that with all my heart. I believe, though, that human beings continue to tamper with an emotion that was not made for them and that they are incapable of achieving.
You know, I understand what you're saying. Like, well, I'm not prepared to accept that as yet. I understand what you're saying, though, but I'm not prepared to accept that. So I believe we can have we can have unconditional love. I believe I could love my brother and sister and my neighbors. I believe I can.
Okay, so explain to me why are there divorces with reason then? If love is so unconditional, why when you catch the woman having sex with another man that's not you, you want to leave her and you love her unconditionally?
Well, I think you're putting two emotions at the same level, man, because you also have the anger emotion as well as you have the love emotion. So I mean, you can't really put them together.
So let's talk about that, right? Let's talk about that, right? Let's talk about that. I try to be as pragmatic in my mind as possible. I don't like to live where unicorns live, right? So I like basic. This is who I am as a person. I like very basic and fundamental understandings of things, right? If the opposite of up is down, yeah, and the opposite of left is right, and the opposite of light is dark, right? Then the opposite of hate must be love. How many people do you dislike in this world? I'm assuming it's more than one.
Yeah.
So if I have the ability to dislike 10 people, why can I not love 10 people? Why does that emotion have to be so specific? Why is there such a level of concentration on that one emotion? Why? Who thought about that?
Yeah. Like I said, I understand you, Leyvon. I guess I'm just not willing to accept.
It's fine.
We can live in a world where we don't love each other, man. I can't accept that, Leyvon. I just can't. It's too much.
I can tell you this. I'm sure that you had a car before in your life that you didn't love, but you took care of that car. Why?
Yeah.
Because the car had value to you. It had worth, right? The car was the means to an end. There were moments that you and that car shared that brought happiness to your life. Yeah. All of these are things that aren't love.
It just means you have an appreciation for the car. You want to take care of it. I understand you. No, like I said, I understand you, Leyvon. I understand you, but I'm not prepared to go that far yet to say I can't look at anybody.
That's fine. That's fine. You and nobody else that I've ever told this theory to, apparently.
I think you're the reason why some of these relationships are getting so toxic, man, because we are moving away from love, man. That's another thing. Well, relationships are so toxic nowadays that we don't even want to talk about love. We talk about things like what can you do for me? What can you bring to the table? These things are so toxic nowadays, man. So,
I think we keep trying to love. Like, okay, think about this. What made Anita Baker them so sad? Love. Gladys Knight. Swing would make us so sad. Love. Lenny. What the fella name? Lenny Williams. What make him so sad? Love. You know, like. So I don't think humans just start.
It is a burden.
Love. I think
it is a burden.
I think it is more obvious to see these days because we have the window of the internet, right? And so we could see people's frustration with their love or their failure at love. But I mean, hopefully, who knows? If I work on this theory a little bit more, I can get people to at least dissect it deep enough. Right.
But something, Leyvon, love hurt Jesus Christ as well, because he wept. He felt
love
pain.
Killed Jesus.
Of course. I mean,
love killed Jesus.
We're not saying it's not going to hurt, man. It's going to hurt. Loving someone's going to hurt. That doesn't mean that you don't have to.
You know the difference between you and Jesus, Yuri?
I know.
You know what the difference is between you and Jesus?
What's the difference? What?
You don't have resurrection power, so when love kills you, that'll be it.
That doesn't mean we still shouldn't strive to love, though. That encompassing love. We still should strive to love one another.
Of course. And I'm not saying that you ought to not attempt to, for instance, right? So the Bible says, husbands, love your wife like Christ loved the church, right? And I believe, again, this is a Leyvonism, I believe that there was a very specific reason that God gave you a template. So he said, husbands, do this thing here that I just do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because, and why would he give you such a specific instruction? Because he can't rely on you to come up with it yourself. Because you are just, have you ever met somebody in a position, right? And I think the word in English is sinecure, right? Sinecure. I think that's the right word. Sinecure. Right?
Sinecure, yeah.
And you realize after 10 minutes of talking to them that not only is this boy an appointee, he is incapable of this job.
He is principal.
Never met somebody like that?
Of course, all the time, man.
They sitting in the position, they got on the coat suit, they got the desk, they got the plaque on the wall, and 5 minutes into an interview, you think to yourself, this fella don't have the mental aptitude it take to get this job done.
I work in the media, Leyvon. I see it all the time, man. I see it all the time. I talk to them all the time. Positions in syndicate.
Talking to political hopefuls is the one that gets me most of the time. You talk to them for 3 minutes, and once you take them off of the pamphlet, that is it.
Yeah, that's a wrap.
A friend of mine says the perpendicular hits the contuberance at that point, right?
So what? The perpendicular hits the contuberance? Where you got it from, man? Who said that?
I get that from a good Mr. Peter Ramsey, a very good friend of mine. Peter Ramsey says it all the time. The perpendicular hits the contuberance. But I feel similarly about humans and love, right? I feel like it is something that we can give a yeoman's attempt at. I think that it's something that we can strive toward. I think it's something that we can certainly lend effort to, sure. Are we actually physically capable of it though? I'm not prepared to bet that. Because by the very description of what love is, I'm not a smart boy. I got a high school education. That's it, right? By the very definition of what love is, when you consider that love is a unconditional, unending, limitless, boundless emotion, none of those words are human words. You are a very finite source.
Finite source, that's right.
So how can a finite source create or generate something infinite? That doesn't make sense to me.
But don't we have a spirit, Leyvon? Don't we have a spirit and a soul that transcends this physical shell that we have?
Why your spirit don't go jump off the bridge and see what happens to your body? All of your happenings in life, Yuri, will be confined to the limits of your human reach. Now, there are some people that have what they call hyperhuman capabilities, right? Like Kobe Bryants. There are the Kobe Bryants of the world. There are, the Gail Davises of the world, the Shawnee Millers of the world, right? Where their human bodies can do things that transcends normal human capability. So there are some people that are better at loving than others because they've possibly tapped into their hyperhuman, right? All I'm saying though is that, again, just at the very crux of the definition of the word, right? Love is an unending, an unceasing, an unconditional, limitless thing that goes on and on and on, despite the scenarios around it. That just don't sound human to me.
Yeah. I understand you, man. I got you. It's fine.
Yeah, so
that was a good thought.
I think what I do think though, Yuri, to your question though, is we have got to learn to find the value in human relation again. We have materialized and monetized our own values. So unless you prepared to account for $100 an hour, you can't have my time. And unless you prepared to fly me out on a jet, you can't have my time. Right? When in actuality, I should be trading my human self for Yuri's human self. And our human exchange should be enriching. Now, I will also say this, and this is where I think men have to step up a little bit. You can't be vapid. You can't just be gaping. You have to be of substance, right? Because who the hell continues to throw a bucket into an empty well? Nobody. So there is some introspection to be done, right? Like, so men have to continue, and I say this to my female friends, right? When you meet a man, the Bible told man to occupy the earth, right? And I take that so literal that I often say that wherever man walks, grass doesn't grow. Because that's where the track road is, right?
Yeah.
But think about this. Grass has an instruction from God, from creation, to grow. Yes, that instruction, though, becomes secondary to man's occupants. So wherever man is, things should happen. A man should change the topography of the landscape. That is how you know if you have a man in your life. If you have a man, your gynecologist might change, your dentist might change, your birth control might change, your deodorant might change, the side of the bed you sleep on might change. Because a man naturally changes the topography. What you drive might change, what you wear might change, what you like to eat might change.
That's right. That's right. Who you hang out with may change.
And if you have a man in your life and nothing changing, you shouldn't waste your time there. You see how that ain't a fly? You see how that ain't paying for your hair?
Yep. I got you. Leyvon, that's a good point to end off on right there, man. Thank you so much. This has been enriching. I had some other questions, but we could say that for another show. Hopefully you'll come back again, man.
Well, this was a good 1 hour. I mean, the football game is on.
Okay, let's get football, man.
Pretty smooth 1 hour.
That's good, man. Thank you so much
for the invitation. Happy to be considered by you, buddy.
Yeah, man. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, man. You were a good guest.
Oh, and by the way, just so you know, I'm back in mainstream media as of the 16th of October. Unleash is back. I'm over at ZNS.
Oh, that's good, man. Oh, you got it in ZNS. That's good, man. Looking forward to that. 4 p.m.
I'll tune in, man. 4 p.m. every day.
So you're part of this new rebranding sweep that they're doing there at ZNS, I hear, right?
You know, I smile when they call it a rebrand because I bring in the same old Leyvon. I mean, and everybody that knows me knows what that looks like. So maybe ZNS is rebranding, but you know, I intend to walk over there as Leyvon Miller. I intend to come and swing the bat. And I tell all my friends, you know, the best way. Dynamite Fritz told me this when I was a 12-year-old boy. He said, "You can't come in the gym every day and practice throwing punches if you're ever gonna be a champ. If you're gonna be a champ, you got to come in this gym every now and again and come to take some hits."
Yeah. That's true.
So that is
you're going up against that 4 o'clock. That's that Rodney Monk slot, isn't that right?
Well, it's Rodney Monk's slot because Leyvon Miller hasn't shown up yet. When I reach, I expect it to be the Leyvon Miller slot.
There you have it. Thank you so much, Leyvon, for your time. I really appreciate it. Good luck with all your endeavors, man. We'll be back.
All right, buddy. Yeah.
Bye. There is another Line Vibe conversation already to the end right there. That's my guest, Leyvon Miller. Master Alama is a very, very intelligent and very eloquent Leyvon Miller. Thank you so much.
Good stuff, you appreciate it.